I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, there she is. I don't know if I stand up. I've done that a while. Just a while ago. I need an adoption of the agenda as recommended by the superintendent.
Move approval.
Second. We have a motion by Mr. Kennedy, a second by Ms. Counts. Do we have any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Do we have any citizens' comments? Seeing none, we're going to Human Services and Ms. Swain.
Good morning.
Hey.
First on the agenda is to ask approval of recommendation for the instructional support recommendations as outlined in the goldenrod. And as you can see, we're hiring lots.
Yeah, that's good.
May I add something to that?
Yes, ma'am.
In case you all hear, we are probably getting ready to put all of our positions on hold because we're monitoring numbers and we see that our middle school's down about 90 students. So in the morning, we're getting together with Ms. Swain to go over all the numbers. So if you hear that rumor, it's true.
Madam Chair, I make a motion we approve the instructional support recommendations as presented on the goldenrod.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Dodd, a second by Mr. Kennedy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0.
Second on the agenda is to ask approval to name Janet Tuggle, the principal at Pleasant Grove Elementary with an effective date of July 1st, 2017.
I move approval that we approve Janet Tuggle as the principal of Pleasant Grove Elementary effective July 1st, 2017.
We have a motion by Mr. Kennedy and a second by Ms. Powers. Do we have any questions or comments?
And Ms. Tuggle is in the audience.
Congratulations, Ms. Tuggle. Best of luck. We're very excited.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Next on the agenda for me is that the board had asked me to provide a few items regarding the new hire. So I'm going to share that information this morning. This information was as of Thursday. We collected the data. And as at this time, we have brought 50 instructional units to the board. Doesn't mean that we're just at 50. We have others that are in the process of being hired. But right now, we have brought 50 names to the board. With support, we have brought 82 names to the board. This includes 4 for transportation and 1 for food service. Again, we're still in the process of hiring, but those are the names that we've brought to the board. We have from our graduates, we have a 3-way tie. We have 3 from Citrus High that graduated, 3 from Christian River High, and 3 from Lecanto High at this time.
Awesome.
Our new employees that we have hired come from the Bahamas, Georgia, Illinois, Maine, Massachusetts, Minnesota, Missouri, Nevada, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Texas, Virginia, and Wyoming. And from our Florida counties, of course, Citrus, Columbia, Dade, Dixie, Hillsborough, Indian River, Levy, Marion, Orange, Pasco, Seminole, and Sumter counties.
And we've taken care of the state and the country.
That is correct.
All right.
Again, we are still processing new hires. As Ms. Himmel shared, we are going to meet tomorrow morning and talk about the status and what positions, because some we're going to need to move. Some of our elementary schools may lose a couple positions, some may gain a couple because of the rezoning. So we're going to have those discussions tomorrow morning.
So does it look like that we're going to open up our schools with a teacher in every classroom?
We are diligently working to get everyone in a classroom. Diligently.
Congratulations,
So,
job well done.
Thank you, Susie.
okay,
Appreciate
thank
it.
you. Have a good day.
Oh,
Yes.
How are we doing on our bus drivers?
And that was, we have processed 4 for transportation, and we're still in the process of hiring. They send me recommendations on a daily basis.
Okay. I just was in another county, and their big news item was that they are very short on bus drivers. And where they're in a dilemma. So I was just kind of curious where we fall on that, if we're going to
I have not heard that from Maryland, but I will check with Maryland. But I know that we are processing on a daily basis. We are processing new hires to be substitutes, and then once they are substitutes for us, they move into those support positions.
And I just came back last week from FSBA, but our superintendent's meeting, and superintendent was having that same discussion. Because when I go to Tallahassee, it starts in Levy, Gilchrist, and Dixie. They all have buses, like we do, parked alongside the road that says bus drivers needed. So I know that's a huge shortage throughout the state, as well as our teachers are also, because they've all scrambling for that and administrators.
Ms. Hamill, you mentioned about the freeze. Is that on just a certain level, or is that just until you guys are
That's
finishing?
instructional and support staff right now, and after we get through the numbers tomorrow, then we'll be able to lift or start moving people around and know where to live.
And I know that's not entirely unusual right now. There's other districts that are in that same boat trying to see where the numbers are going to fall.
We just don't want to hire too many, and then all of a sudden our numbers are down, and we've got to go say, listen, goodbye.
Still complimented when we did have that reduction, that we didn't lose any jobs.
Right.
We moved them around, but we didn't
Right.
lose any.
I noticed too, and Ms. Swain, you may have seen this, but we've got a couple of more regional colleges that are doing away with their teaching programs because they have no one going into teaching. And I know this is, something that we certainly feel a local effect to, but it's not just a local issue. It's not just a state issue, it's a national issue. And for every teacher that we hire, there is another teacher that is leaving the profession. They're not just leaving it because of Citrus County or the challenges that we have, they're leaving it because of the state of public education. And I know that we do our best to continue to retain people, but unfortunately, as long as there's going to be an attack against public education, we're going to struggle. And I hope someday that some of those colleges reopen their teaching program, because it is still one of the greatest, noblest professions that we can have.
That is correct. No, I agree. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Blocker, Finance and Risk Management, approve Exhibit E. All right.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, good, that'd be you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, I am asking to approve Exhibit E to the ASO agreement between Blue Cross Blue Shield of Florida, Inc., doing business as Florida Blue, and the Citrus County School Board, pharmacy-related financial arrangements, and amendment to the Administrative Services Agreement. And I did attach Exhibit E. You will probably recall that at a previous board meeting, on a previous agenda item, I did share with you the PBM, the pharmacy agreement that we have with Florida Blue. We did put that out for an RFP. We had several responses. We carefully reviewed all of those, and the far better of those was the Florida Blue, to remain with Florida Blue for our pharmacy benefits. So I am asking approval of this agreement.
Do you have a motion?
I move that we approve Exhibit E as an ASO agreement between Blue Cross Blue Shield of Florida and Citrus County School Board.
Second. We have a motion by Ms. Counts and a second by Ms. Powers. Do we have questions and comments?
I had a couple questions.
All righty,
With
Mr. Dodd.
regard to the contract period, I know we had talked, it's not on the contract, but yet it is an extension, right? So can you review that with us real quick?
Yes, it is going to be, the pharmacy is going to be for 3 years with renewable periods of 2 years after that.
And is that on the original? I know in this, in Exhibit E, I didn't see it in here.
It is on the ASO agreement that you all approved at a previous board meeting. This pharmacy is really part of the ASO. We're continuing to keep it part of the ASO. We just have this separate because we pulled it out separately to do an RFP.
Right.
And then when the RFP was awarded to them, we felt it was cleaner to go ahead and do this Exhibit E specific to pharmacy. But it is somewhat attached to the ASO agreement as well.
And then in regards to the discounts, I think it's important for the board to see that the discounts are applied heavily to the generic drugs and not as much, very much less to the brand drugs. And that's pretty much just the way these PBMs work. I mean, I don't know I know you all looked at the others as you put this RFP out, but can you discuss that with us a little bit, or any comments on that?
That is typical, and it was consistent among all of those who responded to the RFP. And then these were significantly better than what the other companies were able to offer us.
You know, it's kind of interesting to see that on a generic, they'll give us an 80% discount. Generics are very inexpensive, right?
Correct.
But on the on the retail brands, on the brand claims, you know, you're looking at 16%,
Yes.
21%.
And that is what they're able to offer, and again, it was consistent among all of them.
That's consistent with what Medicare does as well. And what's frustrating is, and it's, you know, it's a broader topic for, you know, what's going on in the federal side of what's going on with health insurance, because we talk about trying to reduce the cost of health care, but no one seems to want to touch pharmaceutical. And that's really where there is an obscene amount of money that is being made and not reducing our premiums. This is, to me, the way that we try to work around it, by getting as many generics and using the generics and then reducing the cost of those, because there certainly isn't the regulation and the lobby is on a generic drug. And we've also seen where generic drugs have been, you know, recaptured by certain markets when they find out there's a secondary effect, and then they remarket them, brand them, increase them by 500%, and then we'll get a little discount if we use it through.
And that's why they advertise them all on TV, so that you can actually doctor them.
Absolutely.
And pay more.
And you're right, Mr. Kennedy, and that's why we lifted out the pharmacy and went ahead and did an RFP, because we're spending so much money on pharmacy. We wanted to make sure we were being diligent and looking out to see what's out there and make sure we're getting the best that we could get.
Best bang for our buck.
Well, I went to the, they had a program on pharmacy benefits, and I went to that workshop, and it's pretty amazing how things are buried in the contracts, almost exclusively in favor of the PBM, the pharmacy benefit manager, not so much in favor of the consumer. In this case, we are the consumer. But it was very interesting to hear them talk about the discounts and the rebates, and how they will change a drug. If it goes generic, they change just 1% of the formula of makeup of the drug, and they can recapture a patent that's no longer generic. And so there are a lot of things, and that's why I think it's important that we continue to look at this, because this is potential to save money. And I appreciate the fact that we did that, right? That we did look at those offers from, I think there were, seven other companies that gave us prices. So I think we're doing our due diligence here to review this, and I think, you know, Blue Cross or Florida Blue, I mean, I think we send a message to them too that we're serious about getting the most bang for the buck and saving money. Now, one of the things I did talk to Mr. Blocker about was the audit, and they had talked in the workshop that it's quite amazing to see when audits are done on the pharmacy benefit managers and how these rebates are applied. It's without exception that the consumer does not come out on top. It's always an error in favor of the PBM. And so they encouraged us to make sure we look at that audit process. Now, I know the audit clause in here, we do have an audit clause, but we would have to pay the fee for the audit. But they have in the audit clause some ways that they're going to recoup monies that, you know, any of their expenses that we're going to have to pay for. But my question again is, on the audit side, I mean, this contract has been in place since, what, 2010, I believe? That's what it says at the last page.
That's when we went self-insured.
Pardon me?
That's when we went self-insured.
So where are we on the audit? I mean, what would be a red flag? What would trigger for us, for you to come back to the board and say, hey, we need to look at this? What would be something we look at?
We regularly look into and have an audit with Crown. We have a person at the Crown who reviews these on a monthly basis, and if they see something out of the ordinary, they bring that to our attention. We also do an audit from our risk management office, where we send letters out for high claims. We send letters out to confirm with the employee that it is accurate. So we are doing those on a monthly basis from risk management, and it's being looked at by Crown on a monthly basis. So if things were coming back from our internal audits, that would be a red flag to us, that we needed to look at the bigger picture, a larger scope.
And I think and I appreciate that, I think one of the things they talked about is the audit of the rebates. And so,
One of the things we can do annually, we're allowed to actually audit the rebates. The rebates are from Prime, I think is the actual pharmacy company that Florida Blue uses. Because we get 100% of the rebates back. That was part of the RFP response from Florida Blue, is we get 100% of the rebates. All the other respondents for a certain percentage and not 100. But we can have an audit of the rebates, we can have an audit of the claims, we can do all that if we suspect or if we suspect there's a need. And or if we want to do it on an annual basis, but we would have to pay for it.
Right.
That would be an expense that would be attributed to the health insurance company. So if there's a reason that Crown looks at it, says we may want to look at this, or if Risk Management says there's an issue we want to uncover, peel back that onion, have an audit, we would then have to employ an auditor to actually go to Florida Blue or to Prime and actually do the audit.
And we'd want to suspect that the amount of the discrepancy would well exceed the cost of the audit, because audits are not inexpensive.
Correct.
So we need to make sure that we have some recognition that we're not just chasing something we think could be there.
We have noticed higher rebates this past year based on some of the higher priced pharmaceuticals that has been hitting our plan, because we have some pharmaceuticals now that are hitting the plan for $30,000 or $40,000 a month. Because like I said, those advertisements on TV, they tell people to go ask your doctor about this. It might be the best thing for your illness. Well, they're very, very costly. We're having to take them from the plan, which is some of the reasons why we hit our reinsurer last year. Remember, that's why they now up that threshold for reinsurance. So, and we saw a bigger receivable of rebates this year based on those higher prices. Prescriptions. So we're seeing the rebates come in. It's always been pretty consistent, but now we've actually seen it more based on this higher price.
And as consumers, we also look at saying, because we bear a large portion of that when we go into these newer medications.
Oh, yeah.
So, I can tell you as a consumer, I'm sitting there going, when I see that, the doctor says, well, it's going to be $100 a month for your cost to be on that pharmaceutical, or I can go to the wellness center and have it for, no additional cost, and it may serve the same purpose. I'm probably going to go to the wellness center and make sure I take that medicine as opposed to gamble on
If we
$100 a
look at
month.
those on a monthly basis, seeing what prescriptions are hitting the plan and seeing if we can push those to the wellness center, make them available to the wellness center to let people know. The other thing is too, when you're looking at pharmaceuticals, those average wholesale price in different tiers, that moves on a daily, weekly basis. It is hard to sit there and actually manage it and follow it, because they can move in and out all the time. And that's what's hard.
That's what's hard, and that's almost to the advantage of PBM.
Yes, it is. It's always to their advantage.
Right. And so, for me, I just want us to realize that that's an option we have, and if you were to ever notice that there's a problem, I would certainly welcome.
We'd scream for an audit.
Yeah, we'd scream for. A 5% error rate is going to be $40,000. And so it's just one of those things that I'm not trying to. I'm not disappointed in this. I'm just saying, hey, we need to make sure as a board we
Make us
understand
aware.
this process.
Yes.
Because like Mr. Kennedy said, this is big money here. This is big bucks, and so anything that we can save, any way we can make sure they know that hey, we're going to be staying on
We're
top
watching.
of this. We're watching,
Watching.
and if we need to employ an auditor to do anything, that we would. So.
Okay, so we have a motion by Ms. Powell. Ms. Powell?
I work with Christina, Citrus County School System, and her relative worked for one of the big pharmaceuticals, and she liked to tell me how much each pill cost to manufacture. And I said, what about that one? And she said, approximately 5 cents cost. We sell it for $30, but it's 5 cents. I have a good markup on that. And over and over, she put in one of the costs, just to let me know
How much you're swallowing.
Relative was making a whole lot of money and paying for it. So.
Wow.
And one thing I wanted to ask Bill before that, about the 90-day mail supply, and do we have a 90-day at the pharmacy supply too? I've gotten it, so I know we've had to have had it at some point.
You're talking about the wellness center?
No,
Or at the-
about
it's going to depend on what the prescription is as far as what length of time that they will prescribe it for. Is that what you're referring
I
to?
just want to know if you have to get it by mail or you go down and pick it
Well,
up.
I think it's your choice. It's cheaper usually by mail than it is to go to the retail store. And then we also offer mail order at the wellness center as well. That's a new,
Yeah, no, that's a
they started as well. But yeah, it's your choice when you do mail order. It's typically cheaper. But going back to what you said, Mr. Kinney, about watching the pharmaceutical prices, the high deductible health plans has forced individuals to become better consumers of their health care. And I mean, there's all kinds of apps that you can say, my doctor prescribed X, Y, Z, and I can put it in there. It'll show me the cheapest pharmacy to go to.
Mhm.
And that becomes you a better consumer to actually pay a cheaper price that will be cheaper for the plan as well. So.
And unfortunately, Mr. Blocker, I'm afraid we may have to continue to do that because, we know there's some serious conversations going on in healthcare. What I think concerns me most is they've talked about rural communities, such as ours, of the impact that it's going to have. And they were saying, you may have a great plan right now. We may have great opportunities right now, but if we start losing medical services around us, it will impact our consumers and our members. So I know that your team is on top of that, but it's a scary time in the healthcare industry and what we're going to do. And I don't know that we have any solutions at our level right now, but it will be impacting us.
Well, I mean, our solution is that we bid it, and that's what we, I mean.
But this may
the prices-
totally change in just a number of months.
Well, it could, and ironically, in the contract, that's an out for them. I mean, it's written right here in the contract that,
They can
any
get out.
government-imposed change that would make Blue Cross's performance of the duties herein materially more burdensome, more expensive, they can modify or amend it.
And we can get out of it too.
Right, 90 days, we can get out of it. But it is interesting, they've covered that base quite well, but there could be some changes coming down. I hope there are, I hope it's a change for the better.
I do too.
And so, I think.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Mr. Bradshaw?
Yes, ma'am. Before y'all, there's two contracts. There is the charter school contract, which is the statutory contract that's between the school board and the Academy of Environmental Science. And then also there's a charter school management agreement. As you know, the AES charter contract expires at the end of this month. And so the charter school contract, which was drafted by myself and with Ms. Gaffney's help and with the cooperation of AES and all of the administrative staff here, this is the one that establishes the charter school and allows them to be a charter school. So I know I provided these documents to you. I had given you a red line version. There was a couple small changes that we discussed yesterday. We added that AES's student safety plan will be submitted to our board, to the school, to the district at least once a year, and a couple other little small changes in the charter contract. The management agreement is for services that the school board does above what you charge under statute for the charter school. So as we provide a lot of services to the academy, that's what the management agreement does, and it has a stepped up basis in the sense that they're going to pay us a certain amount of their FTE, and it will increase over time, over the 5 years of the charter, to basically pay us for services that we're providing to them. It's something that they could go elsewhere, but they trust us, and due to the relationship that we have between the 25 years of doing this, we provide a lot of services to them, and so that is what these two agreements are here. I know that I had spoken to the majority of the board individually in regards to any questions or concerns, and Ms. Gaffney's here along with some of the board members from AES, and I think that we have worked out the differences, not differences, but we have encapsulated what is a unique situation as far as the way our charter school operates in the state of Florida. So I guess as far as I'm concerned, I would ask that the board make a motion and approve both the charter school contract, which is 49 pages long, and then also the charter school management agreement between the School Board of Citrus County, Florida, and the Academy of Environmental Science.
And Mr. Bradshaw, you were clear, and if you could repeat that, this is not a charter school contract that fits all charter schools. We said this is a very unique situation, so no one could walk in the door and say, well, I would like to go by the contract of AES.
It is a unique situation. I think that, when the AES was established, was it like 1988? I think it was 88 or something like that, 98. Charter school laws were different at that point in time. As you know, they are constantly evolving. And the way that, I don't know of another charter school in the state that has the relationship that we have with the academy. I think that most charter schools are either they're fine or they're contentious, and they don't have that symbiotic relationship that we have. Most of the time it's the school district provides a percentage of the FTE to the charter school, and they go off and they do their thing, which probably doesn't work in our situation, and that's why over the course of since 1998 we've developed a good relationship with them and are able to basically coexist and work together through whatever issues that have arisen and have what is a successful charter school. It's almost like a district-sponsored charter school from years ago, where we're highly involved in what they do, and they rely on us to do a lot of the stuff that they need to have done.
So do we have a motion?
I move that we approve the charter management agreement along with the charter schools contract with the Citrus County School Board and the Academy of Environmental Science.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Kennedy, a second by Mr. Dodd. Do you have any further questions or comments?
I just want to say and echo what Mr. Bradshaw said, and that is that this is a very unique charter agreement. It is actually one that had concerned me with recent legislation because we want to have this flexibility. We want to have this type of relationship. This has worked well to have two working entities that need each other, I think, in order to serve students and serve them best. And that was a concern of mine that some pending legislation could have changed that. And so I'm glad that we got this done. And I want to just thank Ms. Gaffney for her work. Ms. Leeper, you've been amazing to work with. You have done an exceptional job at bridging so much, and we're very grateful of that. Ms. Bryant, as our chair, I appreciate it so much. And Mr. Bradshaw, one only needs to look at the thickness of this document. And I know it's a very different world because we, from 1998 to today, the laws aren't even the same. I mean, they're just not the same, and we're trying to do our best to serve students. And Superintendent Hemmel, thank you for making sure that this was out front and that we got the job done. So I'm excited about voting on this.
Okay.
I had a question in regard to some dates. I covered this with Mr. Bradshaw, but I think it'd be good just to make sure we're all on the same page with the budget and that process. I first thought there was a conflict on some dates between when the tentative budget would be submitted and the 15 days to approve on one document, and on the other was approved before September 11th. So there were some issues with days, but Mr. Bradshaw, you kind of explained that. So I think it would be good for us to know that process as a board.
Yeah, Mr. Blocker could probably explain it better than me, but I know that their budget is tied in with our budget on how we do things, and so we have them.
We just asked for them to have the final budget to us by the
August 15th, August 11th, 15th.
11th, whatever, so we could have it in time to prepare for the for our final budget presentation and approval by the board. Typically, that's by September 11th, so that's why we had it done that way.
Right, but they're going to give you, their proposed budget as of August 1st, I believe.
Correct. That's to be incorporated into our final budget proposal.
And then we're going to give them until the 11th of September, though, to approve.
No, that's this board.
They submit their budget August 1st, they finalize their budgets in middle of August, 15 days after that, and that way we have the final numbers to be able to complete our budget, which,
Because you have to approve the final budget by, typically it's by September 11th. That's usually the last day of the budget and the AFR on that same day.
Well, then maybe I'm still kind of confused. And so on page 24 of the charter agreement, page 24, E under budget, B, date to submit to sponsor. Now, we're the sponsor.
that's correct.
It says the school agrees to transmit to the sponsor a copy of the school's tentative adopted budget on or before August 1 and the final approved budget on or before September 11th.
The management agreement modifies that. Because normally, if it was I don't want to call, if we were just giving them the FTE and they were preparing all their financials and everything else, then they would have to submit their budget to us on August 1 and they would have to approve their budget, but their budget would not be part of our budget at that point in time because they would be handling all of their own financial records and everything else. That's why it's different, Mr. Dodd.
We want them to have their final budget approved by that August date so that we can incorporate it into our final budget for the September, typically that September 11th date.
Not taking away from the relationship that we have, the charter schools today operate along the lines of you enter into a charter school contract and basically you give them 95% of the FTE for the students that enter the charter school. And then the district really has very minimal oversight or involvement in a lot of what happens with that charter school. The students are no longer school district kids; they are charter school students. The teachers are no longer employees of the school district; they are hired by the charter school. Their accounting, finances, and everything are all performed by the charter school, and so they basically operate as their own entity without.
They would submit to you their financials once a month, much like what micro school does to us. And then we just have to monitor them as far as the financial condition and everything.
But the tentative budget, not the final budget, their tentative budget is to us by August 1.
Right.
Okay? And then in the management agreement, it says the school shall approve the annual budget within 15 days of submission. Right. School, meaning AES, shall approve the annual budget within 15 days of submission. So that means they're going to submit it by August 1. And then are we going to have enough time to get everything back to them? They can approve their final budget within 15 days?
What am I getting back to them? I mean, they're giving me their budget. We're going to incorporate it in our big budget plan to present to you by the September.
They're going to present their.
They're going to approve it their own board.
By which date though? By September 11th or August?
Within 15 days.
Of the August
15,
1st,
16.
August 15th.
And
See
then,
what they do with their tentative budget, same thing we do with ours, they approve it, then they go back and they finalize everything, they can, and once they approve that, just like ours, they can't increase it, but they can shuffle money with them if they need to, and then they give us the final, and then we take that to
The
our
premise
budget.
is that we want them to submit the budget that they've approved to us, so we can incorporate our budget to approve by the September deadline for us to do the final budget. That's why we did the August date, just to put a date specific in there. So I assume that's all been vetted and everything, we're all good?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So
Okay, so basically then their tentative budget by August 1, they'll approve it within 15 days after that. And the September 11th date though is our date that
That's our date, because remember we do our tentative in July, then we do our final in September. And we put the September 11th date because that's like the final date certain. It could be a date or two between that, the calendar falls on, but it can't be past the 11th. That's the same day we do the AFR.
And the point of the negative ending fund balance that could be carried forward, I know.
We just want to make sure that
Not gonna
there's an
happen.
assumption that, no, because then that's when we have to start managing it and doing some corrective action. But we just want to make sure that it's understood that just because you go in the negative, you don't wipe it out. You got to carry that negative over. We got to have a plan to get you out of that and get you back into the positive.
Right. But if they're in the negative, then.
Because it'd be one of those
corrective
things.
action plan could be.
It certainly would come probably before the negative, but
Yeah, that's.
we just don't want to make an assumption that you know that you don't carry the negative. It's best to put it in writing that we all understand that.
Well, I appreciate the fact that we've added the comments about the student progression plan in there, make sure, because that is going to be kind of the driving force here too with how we annually review those things. So I'm glad of that. I also appreciate the fact we got the school safety plan.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Any other business to come before the board? Mr. Mullen?
Hallelujah. Many thanks. Thank you all.
You're welcome.
Thank you all.
Ms. Powers? Ms. Counts? Mr. Kennedy?
I do have something.
I knew you would. I knew you would.
And,
We want to hear about Scotland.
no, not, HB 7069, one of our
Oh,
favorite things.
Yes, okay. Speak to me.
We know there were some rough parts to that legislation,
yeah.
but it is signed into law now. But there were some good things in there too. One of the good things, at least that I believe, is that it gives districts the option to do away with the value-added measure, commonly known as VAM. I would like to suggest that this board immediately move to begin the conversation and the process to remove formally the value-added measure from any of our evaluation of teachers and doing away with it within any policies or making it clear that we do not have VAM as part of this district's formula. Board
You know about
members?
the state ban?
Yes, the state VAM. Because now that it will make it optional, let's move, to
Quickly.
make it clear.
We get that. Amy is not here this week, and she might have given you a little update on that. They are in the process of working on something different, and we feel like that whatever our Ed Services team and our testing department comes up with, it'll be more fair for all teachers in our district.
Very good.
We'll keep you posted
Am I
on
correct,
that.
though, that this board, at least the majority of this board, has consistently been opposed to
Yes,
VAM?
indeed.
And that we want to make the effort and make it clear that that is the desire of this board?
Absolutely.
We want to reverse them, though, we want to judge them.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, we want to apply it to legislators.
Ms. Powers, I don't know how you judge someone who has a lot of money and owns a charter school and votes to give the money to the charter school. I don't know how you judge those people.
It wouldn't be too difficult, actually.
Because we have some, it's, again, we talk about charters, and I want to make sure that when we say that, because I think there's sometimes a misunderstanding that AES, and I know you think of yourself as a charter, we think of you as family. And it's different because when we hear about Pinellas and Hillsborough County, where a businessman on a private charter extorted an amount of money that, $57 million in public funds. And our charter's trying to work with us to be a part of our family. It's a very different charter when we
We're not
talk
talking about you when we talk about charters.
it's not even on the same page because we're talking about for-profit charters that are, making very specific business decisions that are negatively impacting. And
On the
what we're
backs of our
talking about is very different.
On the
That's
backs
why
of
you
our
brought it up,
children.
because people will ask us, and you always want to put a disclaimer and say, this is not referring to AES, it's a different kettle of fish there. Now, if you want to ask me about charter schools in general, I'll
Exactly.
Mhm.
And as Mr. Blocker said, and I think Mr. Bradshaw said, we have, as a local elected body, who is responsible for the educational public dollars when it comes to charter schools. Now, see, this is why this agreement is so positive, this agreement with AES, because we have, mutual responsibility, both entities. But that's not the case with many charters. If another charter comes in by the state's contract, they want to make decisions, and they lose those monies are gone. There has been no one but a private entity that was in charge of those funds, and that local board has very little discretion as to how we can rein them in or stop things. And that's what concerns us. That's what concerns this board, because we are elected to watch those dollars, but we have no authority over those.
And the public might very well think we do have authority over those private charter schools. We do not. And so if they do take the money and run, we can't go after them. Or maybe Doug can, I don't know if he's.
I know
Oh,
you're
okay.
bad, you probably would.
And we have to fix the problems left behind,
That's right, exactly.
which costs the taxpayer more money.
And stress and strain with the
The press
students
is
and
doing a
families.
pretty good job with those guys that are absconding from. When we were in Tampa, not this last time, but the first time, there was a news clip that there were charter schools in Ohio that were sending their money back to an insurgent in Turkey. So the news, just honest news will help us with that.
Mr. Dodd? Okay, Ms. Himmel? All right, so we're going to adjourn this meeting. Thank you all for being here. I'm going to open up the workshop. Do we need a 5-minute break?
Yes, please.
Yes.
All right.
Thank y'all.
I always need you. I always need you. I always need you. I always need you.